Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things that nobody wants us to talk about in public. That is religion and politics. And yes, they indeed do mix. Before we introduce our guest today, a guest that, frankly, I've been wanting to have on for quite some time, but we're glad we're able to snatch him today. I wanted to give a couple of quick shameless plugs. Don't forget to like Politics and the Pulpit on Rumble. We have all of our shows on Rumble. Usually they're put up right after the show is done with its live feed on Wednesdays within an hour or two. And those shows are all commercial free. So I encourage you to check us out on Rumble and go ahead and give us a like and a follow and then share as you wish. Also, a quick shameless plug in reference to Stars and Stripes concert. We are about to get into the Independence Day holiday. America is going to be 249 years old this year. Stars and Stripes concert is June 28th at 5 p.m. at the Freedom's Way Baptist Church. The Santa Clarita Valley Concert Band will be playing about an hour's worth, if not a little bit more, of patriotic music, music that'll get you in the mood for our July the 4th celebration. Also, for those that are looking for a little more celebration in the month of May, on Memorial Day, which is Monday, I think that's May 26th, if I'm not mistaken, at the Eternal Valley Cemetery. They put on a great Memorial Day celebration and encourage you to be out there. It usually starts around 10 a.m., but I encourage you to get there about 9:30, 9:15 or so, just to make sure you have got seats. But looking forward to Santa Clarita Valley Parade, the Stars and Stripes concert, our Red, White, and Blue Sunday, all kinds of wonderful things happening in the near future. Our guest today is David Hernandez. He wears all kinds of hats. He is the chairman of the LA Hispanic Republican Club. He's the host of the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show on AM 870, heard weekends from 7 to 8. And is the California GOP LA County Regional Vice Chair. David Hernandez, welcome to Politics in the Pulpit.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you and speaking to your listeners. So many thanks.
Absolutely. Would you just, for those of our listeners who may not know you, I know a great majority of them do, and many of them are excited to have you on the show today. Explain a little bit about who David Hernandez is. How did you become the California GOP LA County Regional Vice Chair? How did you get the LA Hispanic Republican Club on AM 870? Give us all the background on David Hernandez.
Well, up until 2002, I wasn't involved in politics at all. My only involvement was I dropped my wife off at Sportsman's Lodge so she could make phone calls for President Bush with her Encino Oaks Federated Women. And that was it. And I got home, and my neighbor, who was 94, said, "David, how come there's never a Republican to vote for Congress and in our district?" And I was so uninvolved, I hadn't even noticed that. I mean, here I am, grew up in Los Angeles, originally from Lincoln Heights, and then, grew up in the San Fernando Valley. Politics, especially at Congress, was, that was for other people to deal with and take care of. I'm sure they're doing a good job because, we still have our flag and the freeway's still flowing. And, but it got my curiosity. How come no one had run as a Republican in our district? And turns out no one had run in 10 years. And I was a businessman. I was an independent insurance adjuster at the time. And I thought, wow, that's not good business not to give your competition. So I started asking around, and they said, well, nobody runs because you can't win. And turned out that philosophy kind of remained within the Republican Party here in California for, the past 20 years. And whether it was Congress, Assembly, or Senate. And so I knew where the county recorder's office was, and I went down there and I asked them, what do you have to do to run for Congress? I had no idea. I said, do you have to have some degree? Do you have to get somebody's permission? Do you have to be an anointed person? What is it that you have to do to run for Congress? And they said, well, there's a clipboard over there. It's 2 pages, triple spaced. You can sign right up. It doesn't cost anything. And I thought, wow, how fortunate are we to live in a country where that's even possible?
Absolutely.
That we don't need somebody else's permission. And so I ran for Congress, or I signed up to run for Congress. And back then, before the Republicans in office in 2014 ruined it for us, it was a closed primary. And you had to be to get on the ballot, you had to either pay a hefty filing fee, I think it was like $1,500 back then, or collect 3,000 signatures from registered Republicans in your district. And unlike today, where it's the top 2 primary, where they call the jungle primary, where the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, go to a runoff. And so some of my friends who were Democrats, we set up a little table over in the Studio City Farmers Market. And while people were walking by in their Birkenstocks and tie-dye shirts on their way to, get their gluten-free food, my friends would stop and say, excuse me, are you a registered Republican? And they came back after a couple of hours in tears and said, David, you know what, we love you, but these people are vicious. You ask them if they're a Republican and they're, ready to knock you out. So I thought, well, you know what, I try. I did, I didn't have the $1,500 to go ahead and sign up just, on a lark. But a Republican club called me, and not the county party or the state party, but a Republican club called me and said, we see that you signed up to run for Congress. How is the signatures going? I said, it's not. And I figured that was the end of it. Well, they said, if you're not crazy, we'll pay your filing fee. That should have been a red flag. If they were willing to pay my filing fee, they didn't even know me. And they paid the filing fee, and I was their Republican nominee in 2002 for back then the 26th Congressional District. And it's been a learning experience and an exciting adventure ever since. And what I learned was that no race is without purpose. My question now, when people ask me about running for office, the only question I have is, will it make a difference? And it will always make a difference. If we have Republicans out there in their own communities and they're talking about the issues and solutions and people are listening, they get to form the narrative of what people think about when they think about Republicans, and not just the leftist diatribe that they try and put out there as who they try and say we are. And so that had worked. So I ran in 2004 again, and once again, this time I paid my own filing fee and started developing relationships, and then ran for a couple of offices since then, the last one being in 2018 when I ran for lieutenant governor. And that was an incredible experience because here, leaving the San Fernando Valley and heading north, up to the Highway 99 and Highway 5, passing by, waving to Magic Mountain as I'm on my way up to Sacramento or the farm communities and ranch communities, and just meeting wonderful, incredible people up and down the state, people that had not given up on California. They were there waiting for L.A. County to get their act together because L.A. County has been an anchor around the neck of Republican politics in California. And so as a result of that race, I also met a lot of fine people running for office that didn't have a lot of money, but they had the passion and the willingness to put in the work. So we started our Hispanic Republican Club. Now, I've never been hyphen anything. I've always just been an American. And but what I looked at when 2004, when I ran for Congress, I found the Jewish Republican Coalition, the RJC, and I was kind of curious because here aren't they just a Republican group? So I started attending their meetings. I joined the organization, and what it enabled people to do, people that were basically invisible, could see that there were other people like them, that they were of a particular ethnicity or a particular religious bent, and there were Republicans like them. So in looking at the voter rolls here, especially in the San Fernando Valley, I was shocked to see how many Hispanics were already registered Republican, because I had always heard that Hispanics are Republican, they just don't know it. Well, when I looked at those voter rolls, I was the one that didn't know it, because they were there, but like anything else, they were invisible, because especially back then, to come out as a Hispanic Republican, you got a lot of heat for that. And so I decided to go ahead and name the club the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club. And, for that reason, not anything other than helping people identify like-minded individuals like them who are already registered. Now, the club, we're an independent Republican club. We're not under any charter. County party, the state party, national party, they all wanted us to be, under their charters. And I saw that I wanted to have the autonomy to support good candidates and not have to conform to all of the bylaws of the particular, the different Republican levels of governance. And so it's worked out well. We started with our, in 2000, and I think it was about 2018, we started a program because I looked at the candidate signups for 2018, and of the 24 state assembly districts in Los Angeles County, only half had Republicans running. And so I started running ads on AM 870 with a program called Leave No Assembly District Behind. And so we set out to find candidates to run in as many districts as we could, because we knew that it would make a difference. And so this last election cycle, there were candidates in 22, Republican candidates in 22 out of 24 state assembly districts. And it was amazing, because they were police officers, firefighters, teachers, housewives. I mean, you name it. It was a cross-section of Filipinos and Hispanics, Salvadorians, Mexicans, blacks, whites, the spectrum of Republicans running in their communities like Boyle Heights and Lincoln Heights, or Pacoima and Sun Valley, Arleta. So everywhere you had Republicans that looked like the communities that they lived in running for office, and it was amazing. And so, I look back and I think, that $1,500 that Republican club invested in my first race really has paid off tenfold, because, all I've done since then is pay it forward.
Well, I know that the LA Hispanic Republican Club has been the go-to place for a lot of candidates to stop over and speak and, of course, get your endorsement and the club's endorsement. I'm thinking right now of Christina Irwin, and I'm thinking, of course, of Lucy Volotsky, who has ran several times and almost came a little bit closer with Henry Stern this last election cycle. But who is the club eyeballing right now, and what districts are we really centering our focus on going into the midterms in 2026, David?
Well, usually what people do is they'll look at the raw voter registration and immediately dismiss the race. I mean, that mentality hasn't changed, except for here, in our group. I looked at the Christina Irwin for State Senate District 24. Right now, you have supermajorities in the state Senate, and you have supermajorities in the state Assembly. In order to break the supermajority, you need 3 Republican wins in the state Senate. And in the Assembly, I think you need something like 7 or 8, maybe a little bit more. So in looking at what can we do most effectively and with which race, definitely it's state Senate. And so the 24th district, that was Ben Allen, who's been the senator, so he is termed out. So it is a vacant seat. Now, I looked at the voter registration numbers, and it's about 700,000 registered voters. In the last election cycle, Christina Irwin ran as a write-in candidate. So her name was not on the ballot. But because of the issues, the medical freedom, the parental rights, all of the bills coming out of Sacramento that were basically placing our children in danger, removing parental rights, jeopardizing so many things that really got this whole mama bear movement, that's caused that uprising. I mean, we can, taxes and a lot of these different things are very important. But when you come after somebody's children, the parents, regardless of their ethnicity and regardless of how they're registered, they take notice and stand up. And so when Christina ran as a write-in candidate, she got over 6,000 write-in votes. So 6,000 people had to go and write her name because her name was not on the ballot. And that's, I believe, is probably a record in the county of Los Angeles for the number of write-in votes. And so in the general election, she ended up with about 121,000 votes. But I looked beyond not only the voter registration, because the voter registration is about 2-1 Democrat over Republican, and about another 150,000 no party preference. But I looked at the votes that Ben Allen received, and it was over 450,000 registered voters in the district that did not vote for the incumbent after 6 terms. In a district that was, overwhelmingly, like I said, 2-1 Democrats. The Democrats weren't voting for him in any large number. Christina, 121,000 votes in a district that had 140,000 registered Republicans. At a time, and this is where, we have to look in the mirror and accept the responsibility, that almost 40% of Republicans did not vote in that last election cycle.
I want to pick back up on that, David, in just a second. We're going to come to a hard break right now, but I want to pick back up on that topic and also talk about the state of the California GOP here in California, as well as some other races that I think that you've got some vested interests in as well. We're talking to David Hernandez with the LA Hispanic Republican Club, and of course the host of the LA Hispanic Republican Club Radio on AM 870. We'll continue our conversation with Dave just after this break. All right, we're back here on Politics in the Pulpit, your hometown station, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll continue our conversation with David Hernandez, the chairman of the LA Hispanic Republican Club, and of course the California GOP LA County Regional Vice Chair. We'll talk a little bit about his race in just a second, but we were talking about Christina Irwin. We're talking about some of the seats that need to be switched here in the LA County area. One of the races that we're eyeballing, David, that I think you also have a vested interest in, is in telling Robert Luna to go home in 2026, and perhaps maybe seeing some brand new, if you will, a new sheriff in town, as the old saying goes, Oscar Martinez, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing here for our show, who I've actually had the pleasure to not only meet, but we'll have some more interaction with him over the course of his campaign. But tell us how you met Oscar, David, and what is your interest in Oscar?
Well, we have our club meetings here at our headquarters in Woodland Hills, and one meeting night, a gentleman walked in dressed nicely in a suit and sat down and just listened to our speaker. I think we had Jack Guerrero was speaking that evening, and then Oscar introduced himself and said he was thinking about running for sheriff, and what did I think? And I said, well, given the fact that Proposition 36 was passed in California with over 10 million votes, in a state where there's only 5 million Republicans, public safety is kind of at the top of people's list. And so I did a little research. I went out to Santa Clarita when he did his announcement. I met his wife. I met his kids. Learned about his 8 years in the Marines, both serving in Afghanistan and Iraq. His amount of service, and now as a lieutenant on the sheriff's department. And it's like, wow, what an incredible individual. How fortunate we would be to have Oscar as the sheriff. And because the reality is the sheriff's department was never meant to be as political as it has become, with the county board of supervisors trying to manipulate their agenda. The civilian oversight committee, when that was first formed, the oversight committee for the sheriff's department, I started attending their meetings, and one of the big controversies within that meeting was whether or not they should say the Pledge of Allegiance, because some members on there felt that they shouldn't have to do that, and it might offend some of the people in the audience. And that was a real concern for some of the people sitting there. So when the controversy started with Sheriff Alex Villanueva, I could see, wow, what has happened to those with the supervisors and this oversight committee that was really bent on pushing a leftist agenda and an anti-law enforcement agenda. And so when Luna got elected, it was like, wow, they got their guy. Not only did they get their guy in there, but they got a ballot measure passed that gave the supervisors the ability to fire an elected sheriff. And it's like, wow, talk about, really putting hindering somebody that, who should be, able to exercise enforce the law and exercise the policies in place. And so Oscar would definitely be, right now, I think there's Luna and Oscar and one other person running, but by far Oscar is definitely the best choice.
Well, not only the best choice, David, but I don't even know who that third person is. So really, it's.
I'm not sure. I think he's a retired sheriff, but I don't even know his name.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes to show you that this is really a two-man race between Robert Luna and Oscar Martinez. And, of course, here at KHTS, we're going to continue to support Oscar, and we're going to have him on for several broadcasts as well as special broadcasts, and come on my show as well, because we think we definitely need a change of leadership there for LA County Sheriff. Let me also get your thoughts about the California governor's race, David. I've had the privilege of interviewing both Steve Hilton last week as well as Sheriff Chad Bianco. Those are the two big Republican names. There are some lesser names, of course, like Leo Zaki and a few others as well. But yeah, exactly. And what are your thoughts about both Sheriff Chad Bianco, the sheriff of Riverside County, and also Steve Hilton, the former Fox host for the weekend show, and now running for governor? Your thoughts on those guys, David?
Well, I started out as a blank slate because I really, I had heard of them, but I really didn't know them. I hadn't followed what the sheriff was doing, and I hadn't watched Steve Hilton on Fox, so I just heard that he was a Fox commentator. But as regional vice chair for the party at the state conventions, we have our regional meeting. They're on Saturday mornings at the convention. And so at my first regional meeting, Steve Hilton came and spoke and introduced himself. And then at our meeting in Sacramento in March, Sheriff Bianco came and spoke at our meeting. Both great individuals. I was asked to sit down with Steve Hilton, and he asked me what I thought. And I said, well, let's see, there's 10 million Democrats and 5 million Republicans. How are you going to make up that difference? And I pointed out, most of the state is red, but LA County, with 3 million Democrats and 1 million Republicans, what can you do to kind of balance the scales for you so that LA County would be the driving engine of Republican politics in California rather than an anchor around its neck? And so I know that my friend Gloria Romero is starting a Hispanic voter registration effort, on Steve's behalf. And what we're doing at our end is that we're reaching out to the Republicans who aren't voting, because with at least 40% of Republicans not voting in LA County, and the counterpart, there's at least 50% of Democrats not voting either. But when they have 3 million and we only have 1, they can afford to lose 150,000 voters. We can't. And so what we're looking to see, it's at both campaigns, is what are you willing to do in order to help level the playing field in LA County? Because without LA County, you're at least achieving some level of equity. I like to use the left word, language against them. That we need to find out, what is it going to take for Republicans to vote? Is it going to be $8 gasoline? I would have thought that $5 worth of gasoline would have been enough, or all of the things that are coming out of Sacramento. So it hasn't been enough to get Republicans in a large amount to come out and vote. So in order for either the sheriff, Bianco, to have a shot, we're going to have to find out what that is in LA County. And Leo Zaki, I've known Leo for a number of years. He's from the Zaki Farm chicken family.
Yeah.
And when I was elected to regional vice chair on the state party board, Leo had an event at his home for me to raise money so I could do some of the regional trainings that I put on for the county central committee.
Well, here's the thing about California. I think you said it earlier, David, when I asked you about your involvement in the Republican Party. There is this notion that the Democrats are unbeatable, especially when it comes to some of these broader races like Congress and others. And so I think that has set into the thinking into many of our Republican friends, as well as our independent Republican-leaning individuals. And a lot of these guys have just kind of given up on the state of California. I mean, in terms of name recognition, you had Steve Garvey running against Adam Schiff last year. Steve Garvey hardly ran a campaign. I mean, it was basically under the radar, and it was all about just his name recognition. But even that was not enough because Adam Schiff is now our senator.
That's right. But on the other hand, you have races like in Riverside County with Leticia Castillo.
Yeah.
I mean, the same scenario. The voter registration is totally slanted in the Democrat favor. Here you have someone, she had run before. She had a little bit of name recognition, but she worked her rear end off out there, meeting people, getting the message out. I know Jack Guerrero helped her as well. The party did not help her. They looked at her race, and that's like, we're on defense trying to defend, young Michelle Steele or Mike Garcia, and so now Leticia, beats what the odds makers would have bet, and now she's sitting there in the state assembly.
Yeah,
and so. Those are the stories. That's why I love being involved in politics, because once in a while, good people do win. And so, Leticia and I joke, even though I'm on the state party board, when I hear the state party, talk about, we flipped the seat, Letitia and I start laughing. He goes, "What's this we stuff?"
We got about 3 or 4 more minutes here, David, and I wanted to talk about the state of the California GOP. And let me just tell you what I'm hearing here in Santa Clarita, not only from the congregants in my congregation, but of course just here from the broader public. There's a lot of desire for Republicans to see a Republican governor, to flip seats both in the Assembly as well as the state Senate. But they feel like the California GOP has kind of, if you will, given up on a lot of these places. And the grassroots feel as if the California GOP is just really not with them. Now, do you sense, David, with the new leadership that has just taken in with Corinne Rankin, that maybe that is going to switch in the coming months and weeks?
Well, I believe it already has. Now, remember, I've been sitting on the state party board for a year and a half. So L.A. County has had a voice on the state party board. Now, unfortunately, it was only like 3 conservatives on that board. But at the last convention, Jack Guerrero was elected as the state party treasurer.
Yep.
So there's another vote. And we had 2 other regional chairs that were also conservative grassroots elected to replace the 2 outgoing chairs. So we now have 4 votes. This September, there'll be an election for the regional vice chair in Riverside County and San Diego County, and my race will be up for re-election. So, we're working with the different groups within Riverside, Orange County, and San Diego, and San Bernardino County to make sure that come September 7th, we have 2, if not 3 more conservative Republicans on the executive committee of the state party. So there is a lot of progress taking place. And so the grassroots are they're not going to be ignored. I'm hosting an event June 7th in Whittier where we're recognizing and honoring all of the elected Republicans who are sitting in the office of mayor, city council, school board, and there are quite a few out there. And so we want to acknowledge them. And so the new leadership, I've known Corinne for, like I said, for a year and a half, or well, actually even before she was elected. So there are major changes that are taking place, and the accountability is going to be a lot more transparent with Jack Guerrero as treasurer.
Absolutely. And if you had to guess and put on your prophecy hat, David, going into the Republican governor's primary for next year, do you think that Steve Hilton becomes one of the top 2 choices, or is Chad Bianco going to be one of the top 2 choices, or do you think there might be a dark horse that is yet to announce?
Well, I know that because there's so many Democrats running, and high-profile and well-funded Democrats, so they're going to really split their vote. So I don't think we have to worry too much about 2 Democrats being in the top 2. So that's either going to be either Sheriff Bianco or Steve Hilton, and there may be a dark horse that's waiting in the wings. But right now, I think those 2 are the top tier with Leo Zaki, just because of his exposure and how much he's been campaigning for a couple of years now. I think right now those are the 3 top candidates.
Gotcha. Well, David, it has been a pleasure talking to you today here on Politics and the Pulpit. I want to give you the last word just before we go to break. How important is it for evangelical Christians in the state of California to get engaged in politics? And how dispirited are you that a lot of evangelicals just sit on their hands during these elections?
Well, I think once we saw how easy it was for the government to close down your church and to close down your business and to take away your parental rights, I think you have a biblical duty to participate in this process. because if good people don't get involved, it does not stay a vacuum. We end up with the evil that we have now. And, it's that faith without works. And, now is the time, because if we are not successful in 2026, it's going to be a lot more dangerous for our families, our children, and our places of worship.
Absolutely. David Hernandez, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit. You can listen to David on weekends on AM 870 on the LA Hispanic Republican Club radio show. That is from 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. on Saturdays on AM 870. And, of course, he is running for re-election for the California GOP LA County Regional Vice Chair. David, Lord willing, I'll see you in Whittier in the month of June.
Well, the Lord's always willing, and they can also go to our website, Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club.com, and find out more about all the things that are going on. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. You have a great day. All right, when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to talk about how it's going to cost you a little bit more to pay for your insurance, thanks to Ricardo Lara, our insurance commissioner, who is also known as feckless, when we come back on Politics in the Pulpit. All right, we're back here for our final segment of Politics in the Pulpit. Again, this is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook. And I wanted to do, somebody sent me a text here, and it says basically, Gavin Newsom really, really wants to be president. And the breaking news is Newsom wants to pause health care expansion to undocumented immigrants. Yeah, I think he wants to run for president, folks. He's definitely running to the middle. And this whole podcast that he started a couple months ago as well has been one attempt to kind of rebrand himself. But this breaking news from today here, wanting to pause healthcare expansion to undocumented immigrants, is another feather in the cap of those of us out there that believe that he is definitely wanting to run for president. So keep an eye out for Gavin Newsom, because he wants to California-tize the rest of the United States should he become president in 2028. I don't know if you've are anticipating the new book by Jake Tapper, the host of the show on CNN. But he's got a book coming out that he is co-authoring with another gentleman, all about the cover-up of the media of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Now, we all knew about Joe Biden's cognitive decline just by, watching the television, and then the media kept telling us to stop believing our lying eyes. We saw the man, ascending up Air Force One steps and tripping several times. We saw him tripping at that cadet speech in Colorado Springs, where supposedly some sandbags were placed in his way. And then, of course, just hearing him communicate, and Jake Tapper, ironically, who wrote this book, which is ridiculous and hypocrisy in full display, Jake Tapper was one of the guys that kept trying to say that his inability to communicate effectively is because of his stutter. In fact, there's a clip on YouTube. In fact, I'd encourage you to look at it. Just put in Jake Tapper, Laura Trump, and Laura Trump brings up this notion that Joe Biden can't communicate and keeps stumbling on his words, and Jake Tapper keeps saying, "Are you making fun of a man that's got a stutter?" and blah, 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 and all these people out there that must feel horrible that you keep pointing out with people with stutters and so on and so forth. So that same Jake Tapper, who carried the proverbial water for the Biden administration for 4 years, is now coming out with a book to talk about the cover-up that he was a part of. Folks, I can't wait to read the book, at least excerpts of it, but it is so rich, folks. For folks to actually be in the media, cover up, and then write all about the cover-up as if you weren't a part of the cover-up. So a lot of fun. So that's coming out here in very, very soon. I left you with the teaser about the cost of your insurance. We have an insurance commissioner in California that ostensibly is getting paid way more than he ought to get paid, and is also got a slush fund. And I think there's some people doing some some work here to try to figure out if he's done anything wrong with some monies that he's been receiving. But if you haven't heard the news today, State Farm Insurance has been approved by Ricardo Lara, our insurance commissioner, the guy that's supposed to be going to bat for all of us here in California, approved to raise insurance rates in California with hikes ranging from 15% to 38%, depending on the type of policy. Specifically, homeowners can expect a 17% increase, renters and condo owners a 15% increase, and landlords a 38% increase. These rate hikes, which take effect June 1st, which is just a couple weeks away, folks, are part of an emergency rate increase approved by the California Insurance Commissioner. That's Ricardo Lara. That's the guy that's getting all the money to do what he's doing. And here's the thing. Here's the story. The LA Times. Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara adopted an administrative law judge's ruling Tuesday and granted State Farm General an emergency 17% hike in its homeowner rates. The commissioner's decision followed the release earlier in the day of a ruling by Judge Carl Friedrich Seligman, who recommended that Lara adopt the rate increase pending the department's consideration of a larger rate request the insurer sought last year due to its weak financial condition. I don't even know if there's a weak financial condition. They've got billions in the bank. And then it says, quote, I expect State Farm to provide the highest level of service to its California customers and to fulfill its promises, Lara said in a statement. State Farm must now justify its financial condition and detail its recovery plan in a full rate hearing before a neutral judge and my department's experts. Now, that meeting was a few weeks ago. Ricardo Lara did not even show up to that meeting. And then it goes on to say this, the decision also would give State Farm interim rate hikers of 15% for its condo and renters insurance and 38% for its landlord rental dwelling insurance. State Farm originally sought a 22% emergency rate hike for its homeowner coverage, but later reduced the request to 17%. How lovely for them. Now, keep in mind that State Farm Insurance has to justify its financial rate hike and detail exactly why they are going to justify having this rate hike. They have not done that. They have not done that. If you continue reading the story here by Lawrence Darmentio, from staff writer from the LA Times, May 13th, 2025, you keep reading this article, they did not do that. They did not justify their financial condition and detail in plain sight for why these rate hikes were necessary. Ricardo Lara is a feckless individual. I believe he is not running for re-election. In fact, I don't think he can run for re-election if I'm not mistaken. Boy, do we need someone that is conservative fiscally, that can dig California out of the mess that we are in, who would be gracious enough by God's will to run for insurance commissioner of our state. I can think of a couple of guys right now that are right here in Santa Clarita that I think would be great for this, but the problem is they're comfortable. And, I don't think they really want, to put their name and, go through the slime and the mud that, will happen, because this is now going to be a more high-profile office than ever before. No one ever thought of insurance commissioner in the past. But now it's becoming harder and harder and harder for us to maintain insurance. It's almost like it's a novelty just to have it, because let's say you have a problem and you actually have to file a claim. State Farm Insurance and some of these other insurance companies will fight you tooth and nail so they don't have to pay it out, or they pay it out as least as they can. In other words, give you the least amount possible. It's going to become more unsustainable to live, own a home, own property in California. And it's just like I said to our Democratic friend last week, Constantine Anthony, who's on the Burbank City Council. What is happening in California is ostensibly because of a one-party rule of over 15 years, both in the State House as well as in the governor's mansion, that California is going to be full of people that are either really rich that don't need any of your help, or they're going to be full of really poor people who are subsidized to be poor. And that will be the only way for those people to remain in California, if they're subsidized by the state. Folks, it's pathetic. It's sad. Next week, we'll have a friend of mine and yours, Jonathan Hatami, who ran for LA District Attorney. He'll be our guest next week. Looking forward to seeing you here. Same bat time, same bat channel. This is Pastor Cook from Hometown Station saying thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.